Today we will be hosting a colleague I greatly admire, Dr. Hattie Meyers. She has followed a path I would have wished to take had I the imagination and the resourcefulness she has in connecting with various communities, which would come to encompass the city, the country, and the world through the arts, literature, and cross-cultural exchanges. We have repeatedly stated in this course that we must rise above the level of thinking that produced our current problems. Dr. Meyers has certainly done that. Psychotherapy, which is an art, helps us to do that, but the arts, perhaps even more, by awakening visions and creating a collective language through which we gain the space to attain our highest potentials. Dr. Meyers is a training and supervising analyst at the Institute for Psychoanalytic Training and Research, or IPTAR, and founder and editor-in-chief of Room, a sketchbook for analytic action. I invite everyone to visit her beautiful interdisciplinary publication and website. Dr. Meyers has served on the faculty at IPTAR, the Institute for Contemporary Psychotherapy, and the National Institute for the Psychotherapies, as well as New York University's School of Social Work. She is a past co-director of the IPTAR Clinical Center, and she co-edited the books Terrorism and the Psychoanalytic Space and Warmed by the Fires, the collected papers of Alan Frosch. Most recently, she has authored chapters and presented papers on the relationship between Dante and Freud. And she is contributor to the much more dangerous case of Donald Trump, 50 psychiatrists and mental health experts warn anew. We are very honored and pleased to have her, and I will now turn it over to you, Dr. Meyers.
Thank you so much, Mandy. This is such an honor for me to be here with all of you. Um, and I'm really delighted to have been invited. When, Freud always said the poets came first. And one of the reasons he said this is because of how important the unconscious is. And it's the kind of, when Bandy and I were talking yesterday, she reminded me that even before she got started with all of this, she had written two books, The Violent States and Creative States, edited these books. And the whole idea is that we can be creative or we can be destructive. The choice is ours. And one of the experiences that I've learned as an analyst is it's not always our conscious choice. It happens in a way that can catch us off guard a lot of times. And one of the things that we have really depended on our artists for from the time of, I don't know, Sophocles on, probably before Sophocles, Homer, is an awareness and some level of the importance of allowing the unconscious to reach a surface so that we can all benefit from what we can learn from what we don't know about ourselves. So that kind of is like a kind of a preamble, both to psychoanalysis itself as well as to all of the arts. But as Freud said, the arts have come first, poetry has come first. And one of the problems in my experience as an analyst is how sequestered we are in our own little fields. And so we always think that we come first. It's psychoanalysis that comes first. It's whatever it is that you're doing that you know how to do comes first. And one of the things that we're recognizing increasingly is that we cannot do this from these kind of sequestered places. We have to come together in an interdisciplinary way and bring everything we have to the table. So this is in part a kind of a preamble to, I don't know what, to what I'm going to talk about today. I guess you guys got in Bandy's prequel for this written down kind of how Room started. I think what I wanted to do is I'll go over this. I think what I want to do is really emphasize the organicness of what we're doing with this new platform. It started from uh, the necessity of a few people coming together days after Trump was elected in 2016, really just terribly anxious about what to do and how to think. and we came together in a real room and realized that we couldn't continue to meet together in a real room. There wasn't time, there wasn't space. So a few of us continued to think, well, maybe we could do something that was just a newsletter or something like that. Um, at the time, psychoanalysis was not connected to the importance of the cultural and the political in the formation of the unconscious. It was a very kind of dyadic or really even relational, but not focused on the outside of the treatment room as much as it is, as it really has become in the last 10 years. So we were really kind of at the edge of thinking we need to be able to speak as analysts, as psychotherapists to a world that's interested in what we have to say. And also we want to bring the world into understanding more of what we don't know, what we're not connected to. So that's kind of where it began, very interdisciplinary from the start. And also just a few people thinking about a local newsletter. We really resonated. It hit a chord from the beginning, and it's grown organically since. And so, what I kind of wanted to tell you about today is what makes it a little bit different than other platforms. And also, as I've learned, as I've learned over the years, not to, it's, I don't know if Bandy's had this experience, if you guys have too, but like, we have to go out of our comfort zone. So I have learned that when one is in a meeting, one always has an agenda. One doesn't do that when one's with a patient. One doesn't have an agenda. It's the patient's agenda. But I have learned since beginning this whole process how important it is to kind of know when you're coming into something, what you want to get out of it. So I'm going to be very transparent with you guys about what I want to get out of this. I want you to join me. I want you to really get excited about what we're doing. I want you to subscribe. It's completely free. This is a total community organizing activity. Part of what the point of this is really bringing communities together. And the other piece of this is also deepening all of our understanding of what we're not seeing yet and where we're going and what we can do to really make things move in a direction that's ethical and that we're all hoping that we can join together to have some impact with. So I'm kind of hoping that I can just engender a lot of enthusiasm for joining me and not just tell you about what I'm doing, but encourage you to come along. Um, Room has been organic from the start. I sort of explained it. It came from a moment in 2016, and people really immediately connected to what our little newsletter was doing. And pretty soon, people said, "Well, we want to see what people have said before." So we knew we had to do more than newsletter. We would have to create a website so that people could look back. I mean, it's on that level of being, we've kind of responded to what readers have wanted. At some point, a lot of the older readers said, "I don't really know how to work the computer. Can't you do it in print?" And we said, "Okay, we can do it in print. We can't do it for free in print, but it is on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and all that stuff. It's way too expensive. You don't need to buy it in print, but if you really want it in print, you can have it in print. If we print, if we, we do give complimentary copies out to the people that we are publishing, but I'm sort of using that as an example to say that everything that we've done that's expanded Room has come from the readership, has come from the community. And it's part of now what we can now see as what the Tate, actually, the Tate Museum in England has called a social turn art, which means that it's completely there because the community has created it. We have created a kind of analytic space, and I'll explain what that means in a second, but it's the community that fills the analytic space. So to that, toward that end, unlike other magazines or platforms, we have no themes, which can make us very anxious at the beginning of a submission cycle. We open the submission cycle 3 times a year and we see what comes in. And that's very much like what we do as analysts with our patients. We open the door, the patient comes in, and it's their material. They talk and we think and we listen and we are witness to what they're having to say, and we are able to think through what isn't being said that's right at the surface and help them be able to say it so that we can all hear it more clearly. So in some respects, it's a very analytic foundation that is at the base of our new platform. We open the submission cycle and we see what comes in. And often we don't know. Let me change that. Never do we know until the end of the submission cycle what any one issue will look like, because it sort of develops kind of like a Polaroid camera, a Polaroid picture, where we see some people submitting stuff and then more people submit stuff and more people submit stuff, and gradually a picture fills of what is happening in the community. This means that each issue of Room is a little bit like a snapshot of a moment in time. And we hadn't anticipated any of this when we started. It really has developed this way. So the website, which has each of the, I don't know how many issues there have been, 3 a year, 25, 26, however many there are, times eight. Um, each issue shows a kind of place where the community as a whole has been. By community, it's increasingly a worldwide community. So while we started off certainly because of the US election in 2016 and how confused we were, we had no idea how bad it would get. But many of us were, all of us were very much destabilized by that election. And some people, especially the people who had lived through World War II, or our creative director at that point had just come from Venezuela and was 18 when Chavez came into power. Some people were very aware of where this could go more than others. Since then, we've all been blown away by just how bad it's gotten. But very, very grateful that we were able to start this when we did, because we're very established at this point. Kind of getting away from myself. So at this point, while we started off locally and nationally, ultimately, it's very worldwide. And as you will see, I'm going to show the last issue to you when I finish this little spiel, so you'll get a sense at this point of where we are. But to give you a little bit of a sense of what's happened over the years, we now have a podcast that comes out every other week where people who have um, contributed to Room, like Bandy Lee, have been able to expand even more on what their work is and what their thinking is. We have a roundtable, which includes several of our authors, which comes out after each issue. It's an international roundtable. At this point, 80 to 100, 120 people sign up each time just to be at the roundtable and hear more from the authors and speak amongst themselves. So that happens 3 times a year after each of the issues. We have a special space on our website, which is separate from the editorial board, which is called We Are the Light. And that is an encrypted space. It took about a year to figure out how to do this, where women from Afghanistan and other countries who don't have any space or platform or way to have a voice of their own expressed have access to being able to publish their poetry, their words, their essays um, on our website. And it's encrypted. They're not allowed to use their names even if they want to. We're very protective of their families, and I'm very proud of this particular space. We also have as part of Room something called the community project section with a special editor. So anybody and this is important for you guys all to hear, anybody who's doing a community project in your locale and you want to showcase it, we would love to showcase it for you. And I'm going to put my name, or Bandy can put my name and email address, in the chat. And I just really encourage any of you to contact me directly with any ideas you have, both for essays or for if you're doing a community project. We would love to be able to showcase it. When we showcase community projects, and they can be all sorts of different kinds of community projects, you can get a sense if you take a look on our website how many kinds of community projects are going on. But it really is a way of not just getting sort of a shout out to what you're doing, but also giving other people really ideas about what they could do, and creating more of a community and less isolation together. Basically, Room is a community project. So it's like it's sort of it's like Russian dolls. This is a community project, and we're showing community projects in it as well. Um, the other thing that we've done that I'm really proud of, last summer, we had a symposium with an Israeli analyst, Eyal Ras-Marine, and a Palestinian analyst, Karim Dajani, which we've luckily filmed. It was part of a larger conference, and the two of them initially they met through Room, and they were writing letters to each other that we published. And then meeting every other week and then writing letters. And I met with them at one point and realized that there was something going on between these two that was so extraordinary that it would be really cool if other people could hear it. So we did apply to have them uh, do a symposium, just speaking together at a conference, and filmed it. And it was really an opportunity for people to see what's possible when two people can speak both about where they come from and then also recognize, and it was also very spontaneous, recognize internally something that the other is bringing up in themselves that they didn't realize was there. It's so moving. And the two of them have continued to work together. We did get a grant um, to help them both to publish a book that would be a mainstream book that would be used for educational purposes to really get at this very, very intractable conflict in a new way. There are people who are working very hard between the Israelis and the Palestinians to come up with a new kind of way of understanding how to address something that feels so intractable and so historically um, untenable to get through. We feel that what is different here is the focus on, again, on the unconscious and how much is not understood when people begin to actually speak to each other and then begin to understand something in themselves they hadn't understood before. So I'm very excited about that. And it's been viewed at about 8,000, almost 8,000 times on YouTube. It's been screened all over the world. And now there is a group in Philadelphia that's creating process groups based on the screening. So if anybody's interested in joining that and being part of that too, I'm happy to connect you up with them. Um, I'm trying to think if there's anything I'm missing most recently. I think the main thing I wanted to get across is how organic this has all been. Like even with the video, it started off with these two men meeting and writing letters to each other in room. The We Are the Light started off with a woman from Afghanistan who wrote a letter to the UN that she tried to get published in 4 or 5 different platforms, and nobody would accept it. We took it, we published it. It went to the UN. It was handed to President Biden to see. The UN brought her in vis-a-vis Zoom to speak with her, and also as a subcommittee of the UN, and also to keynote a conference they had on women in Afghanistan. This was an 18-year-old girl who we were really able to um, I think change her life and change probably many, many people around her to recognize that this was possible. That was the beginning of the We Are the Light, where several NGOs joined with us and found ways of helping us create this encrypted place. So I guess what I wanted to sort of emphasize is how community centered we are, how we've grown organically from things that have come into room and then expanded out from this beginning. So it's kind of like a seed that's just germinating. And I'm really delighted that Bandy invited me to speak with you guys today because I'm hoping that you'll join in.